Now, I've done many questionable things in life, like eating leftover lasagna from 2012 or trusting my neighbor's advice about lawn fertilizer. But nothing prepared me for the day Linda's best friend waltzed into our house and suggested, with great enthusiasm and minimal mercy, that we take up salsa dancing. I don't mean salsa as in the dip, which I would have gladly volunteered for. I mean the foot-tangling, hip-swinging, rhythm-demanding kind. The kind of activity that could topple a man who once tripped over his own slippers. Stay with me, friend, for this is a tale of music, mishaps, and marital twirls you won't want to miss. There are days in life when you wake up knowing you're about to make a memory. You see the sun shining, hear the birds singing, smell the coffee brewing, and think, today will be a good one. And then there are days when you wake up, step on the dog's squeaky toy, spill said coffee down your robe, and end up face to face with your wife's best friend who is about to change the entire trajectory of your ankles. This, dear listener, was the second kind of day. Now, let me set the stage. Our house on an ordinary afternoon tends to buzz with its own rhythm. Daisy, our dog, provides percussion, usually in the form of toenails tap dancing on the hardwood as she chases invisible enemies. Linda hums like the string section, usually while rearranging things that I thought were perfectly fine where they were. And me. I'm the woodwind section, not because I can play flute, but because I sigh a lot. That afternoon, I was in my natural habitat, the recliner. I had mastered the perfect recline angle, just far enough back to nap, not far enough to get stuck like an overturned turtle. The ceiling fan hummed, the faint smell of Linda's lavender candle floated by, and I thought, yes, Henry, you have achieved domestic bliss. And then came the knock. Not the polite I come bearing cookies knock, not even the I am your neighbor and I need to borrow a rake again knock. No, this was the sharp, confident knock of someone who had ideas. Ideas that, unbeknownst to me, involved my hips moving in ways they hadn't since the Carter administration. Linda, of course, sprang up. "That'll be Cheryl," she announced in the same tone one might use for, "That'll be the cavalry." Cheryl. I had heard her name countless times. She was Linda's best friend from college. Their legendary dorm room adventures had been recounted to me so often, I felt like I'd earned a minor degree just from the retellings. Apparently, Cheryl once convinced Linda to enter a hot dog eating contest. She once taught Linda how to sneak into the campus swimming pool after hours. She once dared Linda to write an essay entirely in rhyming couplets, and Linda did, and still somehow got a B+. So when Linda flung open the door, arms wide, and let Cheryl into our home, I knew only one thing for sure. Stability had left the A building. Cheryl was, in a word, unstoppable. The kind of person who could convince you that joining a medieval reenactment society was not only a good idea, but your destiny. She breezed into the living room like she owned it, hugged Linda like they hadn't seen each other in 47 years. It had been 3 weeks. And then turned to me. "You must be Henry," she exclaimed, "Linda's other half." Now I should have shaken her hand. A normal, functioning adult man would have. But Daisy, sensing the arrival of a new friend/victim, leapt between us with a bark, causing me to flinch so hard I knocked over the remote control. It clattered to the floor like a drum roll announcing, "Ladies and gentlemen, disaster incoming." Cheryl laughed, the kind of laugh that fills an entire room. "Oh, Linda, he's adorable, just like you said. Adorable. a word usually reserved for babies, puppies, and occasionally cookies with googly eyes. Not, in my opinion, ideal for a man who just spilled his coffee on himself. Still, I smiled weakly. "Welcome. Coffee?" She shook her head. "No time. I've come with a proposition." Now, in my defense, when someone says proposition in your living room, you immediately picture either a pyramid scheme or a Tupperware party. I braced for both. Cheryl clapped her hands together. "Salsa dancing." I blinked. "You mean the dip?" She laughed again. "No, silly. The dance. There's a beginner's class tonight, and I thought, what better way to spend an evening than dancing with your spouse?" Now, I would like to pause the narrative here to point out something important. I am not built for dancing. My rhythm is less smooth Latin motion and more appliance with a loose screw. My idea of dancing is the cautious shuffle I do when carrying soup across the kitchen. But Linda? Oh, Linda's eyes lit up like someone had plugged her into a Christmas tree outlet. "Oh, Cheryl, that sounds wonderful," she said, clutching Cheryl's hands. "Wonderful," I mouthed silently at her. "Wonderful." Daisy, picking up on the energy, began twirling in circles, her tail a blur of excitement, which, honestly, made her a better salsa dancer than me already. "Henry, isn't this exciting?" Linda beamed at me. "We'll learn something new together." I opened my mouth to protest, but Cheryl was already in motion. "Don't worry, Henry. The class is super easy. They say if you can walk, you can salsa." "Well," I muttered, "depends how good you are at walking." But no one heard me. Or perhaps no one wanted to. Because just like that, it was settled. Cheryl was coming back at 6 to pick us up. I watched her leave, the door swinging closed behind her like the curtain at the start of a play, and turned to Linda. "Linda," I said slowly, "have you ever actually seen me dance?" She patted my arm. "You'll be fine. Besides, it's not about skill. It's about fun. Fun. That's what people say right before dragging you into karaoke or suggesting you try wasabi for the first time." I looked at Daisy, who was still spinning like a furry tornado inside. "Looks like I'm going to need new shoes." Now, let me confess something. This wasn't my first brush with dancing. Oh no. Years ago, at my cousin Marjorie's wedding, I attempted a dance known as the electric slide. You'd think the instructions shouted in the song itself would have helped. They did not. I slid when others turned. I turned when others clapped. At one point, I faced entirely the wrong direction and performed an enthusiastic solo for the caterer who was trying to restock the shrimp. Linda still occasionally reminds me of the look on the caterer's face, a mixture of pity and fear. So yes, I had evidence, hard evidence, evidence that me plus dance floor equaled chaos. Back to the present. Linda had already begun rummaging through her closet. "We'll need something festive to wear. Maybe that shirt with the palm trees on it?" I groaned. "The Hawaiian shirt. Every man has one. It's the shirt that seems like a good idea when you're on vacation and never a good idea again." "Linda," I protested, "that shirt makes me look like a misplaced tourist." "Perfect," she said. "Tourists dance with joy." Meanwhile, Daisy had disappeared into her dog bed, only her wagging tail visible, as though she couldn't wait to see how this would unfold. By 5:30, Linda had an outfit picked. I'd reluctantly agreed to wear the palm tree shirt, and Daisy had positioned herself strategically by the door, ready to make a break for it in case she was invited too. At 6 sharp, Cheryl pulled into our driveway. I swear her car even honked in rhythm, like it knew we were heading into trouble. As we climbed in, Cheryl beamed at us from the driver's seat. Ready to spice up your lives? Is it too late to just buy salsa? I muttered. And off we went, my palm trees fluttering in the evening breeze, my fate sealed, my ankles already preemptively aching. The car ride over was, in many ways, a prelude to disaster. Cheryl had a playlist. Of course she did. Every song thumped with a beat that made the seats vibrate, the kind of music that told your hips, "Get ready, friend, you're about to be conscripted." Linda was clapping along, already halfway to Havana. Cheryl was drumming on the steering wheel like a seasoned percussionist. And me, I was trying to figure out whether faking a sprained ankle in the parking lot would be convincing enough. "You'll love this," Cheryl shouted over the music. "Salsa is life," I tried to shout back. "My life doesn't do salsa." But the bass swallowed my words whole. Daisy would have understood me, but alas, she was at home guarding the couch. By the time we pulled into the community center, my palms were damp, and not from the tropical shirt. The community center was buzzing. Couples streamed in with the sort of enthusiasm usually reserved for free buffets. Some were young and spry, others looked about as spry as a plate of mashed potatoes, which gave me hope. Inside, the gymnasium had been transformed. Strings of lights twinkled along the walls, the faint smell of floor wax mixed with someone's overly ambitious cologne. And in the center stood the instructor. Oh, the instructor. He was a man built entirely of rhythm. His shoes were glossy black, his pants perfectly pressed, his shirt so red it looked like it might combust. But the pièce de résistance was his mustache. It was not merely facial hair. It was a declaration, curled at the ends like it had studied fencing in Spain. The mustache seemed to dance independently of his face. "Welcome, amigos," he cried, his voice booming across the gym. "I am Raul, and tonight, we dance." The crowd erupted in applause. Except me. I was still staring at the mustache, wondering if it required its own passport. Raul clapped his hands. "Pair up with your partners, feet together, hearts open, hips ready." "Did he say hips ready?" I whispered to Linda. "He did," she whispered back. "Be brave." Brave. That's a word usually reserved for firefighters, astronauts, and people who try to assemble IKEA furniture without swearing. Not for a middle-aged man about to topple over during basic steps. We lined up with the other couples. Cheryl gave me a thumbs up like a coach sending in the least athletic player. Linda looked radiant, which was unfair, because I looked like a sweaty tourist who'd accidentally wandered into a dance movie. "First, we learned the basic step," Raul announced. He demonstrated with a flourish. Forward, back, side, side, hips wiggling as though they had independent Wi-Fi signals. I tried to copy, forward, back, side. Side? Which side? Suddenly, my left leg didn't trust my right, and both decided to unionize. "Excellent," Raul cried, scanning the group. Then his eyes landed on me. "You, senor, in the tropical paradise shirt, yes, you. Loosen the body. Dance is not accounting, it is life." The class chuckled. I forced a smile. "I'll have you know, I once almost passed pre-algebra." Linda elbowed me gently. "Relax, Henry." Relax? I could barely breathe, let alone relax. Now, here's the thing about salsa. It's deceptively simple. 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. But when Raul added music, everything changed. Suddenly the room pulsed with rhythm. Couples swayed, hips shimmied, and the gym transformed into a carnival. Meanwhile, I was moving with all the grace of a malfunctioning Roomba. "Forward with the left, Henry," Linda whispered. I thought we were on the right. "That was last beat." "Last beat of what?" "Of the music." The music and I were not on speaking terms. At one point, Raoul swooped by like a salsa eagle, snapped his fingers near my ear, and said, "Sigh," but more Corazon, less calculator. The class laughed again. Even Linda laughed. Daisy would have laughed too if she'd had the vocabulary. Now, I should have known I'd be in trouble with salsa. Years earlier, at a cousin's anniversary party, someone had convinced me to try the cha-cha. "It's easy," they said. "Just 2 steps and a cha-cha-cha." Reader, I never found the cha-cha-cha. It disappeared into the void, never to return. I ended up circling the buffet table like a confused penguin. Eventually, I gave up and started helping the caterers refill the potato salad. So yes, dancing and I had history. Bad history. Back in the gym, Cheryl was twirling like a woman possessed. She even switched partners halfway through to dance with Raoul, who shouted, "Si, perfecto," as though she'd just solved world peace through footwork. Linda was surprisingly nimble too. She swayed, spun, laughed, the whole time looking like she'd been waiting for this her entire life. And me? At one point, I stepped forward when I should have stepped back, and we ended up nose to nose so suddenly I nearly headbutted her. "Henry," she gasped, giggling. "Sorry. The music and I are in a custody battle over my feet." She kissed my cheek quickly. "You're doing great." Reader, I was not doing great. But when your wife kisses you on the cheek during salsa class, you straighten your tropical shirt and give it another go. After 30 minutes, Raoul announced, "Time for turns." My blood ran cold. Turns, as in spinning, as in the thing that had once made me dizzy at a carnival ride called the Tilt-A-Whirl. Raoul demonstrated. A quick hand raise, a partner spins gracefully, music continues, nobody dies. When I tried, Linda twirled halfway before my hand got tangled in hers and we nearly created a human pretzel. "Stop!" I hissed. "I'm tied to you like a kite string." She giggled harder. Cheryl cheered from across the room. Raoul, to his credit, did not faint. He simply shouted, "Good enthusiasm, senor. Now less knots, more flow." By the end of the hour, my shirt was damp, my pride was damp, and my shoes had squeaked so much they deserved their own credit in the program. But you know what? Linda's eyes sparkled. Cheryl was glowing. And despite everything, despite my stiff knees and my feud with rhythm, I couldn't deny there was something, some spark of fun. Of course, that spark would soon grow into chaos, but that's for later. When the class ended, Raoul gathered us all. "Excellent work, amigos. Next week we meet again. Same time, same passion." "Next week?" I looked at Linda. "Next week?" She nodded, smiling. "Yes, we're signing up, Henry." "Signing up for what? Public humiliation?" "For fun," she said firmly. "And exercise." Exercise. The word made my calves whimper. Cheryl clapped me on the back. "You were amazing." "Really?" I asked, hopeful. "Well," she admitted, "you didn't injure anyone. That's a win." I sighed. Daisy would be so disappointed when she realized her human had been outdanced by everyone, including the mustache. But as we piled back into Cheryl's car with the salsa music blasting again, I caught Linda smiling at me. Really smiling. And for a second, just a second, I thought, maybe this salsa business wasn't so terrible. Until Cheryl turned the volume down and said, "So, how do you two feel about performing at the community showcase next month?" The car lurched as my heart skipped several beats. "What?" I squeaked. Now, I want to make something clear. When Cheryl uttered the word showcase, I thought she meant something simple, like, oh, maybe a friendly circle at the end of class where everyone claps politely, no one makes eye contact, and afterward there are cookies. But no. What Cheryl actually meant was this: a full-fledged community performance, complete with spotlights, folding chairs packed with neighbors, and programs printed on glossy cardstock. The sort of event where someone's Aunt Mildred would film the entire thing and upload it to Facebook with the caption, "Henry, what were you thinking?" In the car, I stared at her. "A showcase?" "Yes," Cheryl beamed. "It's in 4 weeks. Every beginner class does one. Just a short routine. Nothing scary." "Nothing scary," I repeated. "Cheryl, the scariest thing I've done this week is use the self-checkout at the grocery store." Linda squeezed my hand. "It'll be fun. Besides, we need goals. You always say you want to try new things." "Yes," I'd said that once, out loud, in a moment of weakness, possibly after 3 brownies. But what I meant was new foods, not public humiliation via rhythm. Still, Linda was glowing, Cheryl was practically buzzing with excitement, and I, once again, was outvoted 2-1. Daisy, had she been there, would have taken my side. But Daisy was at home chewing on her rope toy, blissfully unaware that her human was being railroaded into a nightmare. When we got home that evening, I collapsed into my recliner, shirt clinging like a damp tropical storm, while Linda kicked off her shoes. "That was fun, wasn't it?" she asked. "Define fun," I muttered. She grinned. "Oh, Henry. Admit it, you smiled at least twice." "Those were grimaces," I corrected. But here's the thing about Linda. She can detect joy even when I've buried it under 10 layers of sarcasm. She just raised her eyebrows and said, "We're doing this." And that was that. The word showcase has haunted me before. In 3rd grade, our music teacher, Mrs. Richardson, announced a class recital showcase. I was assigned the triangle. You'd think the triangle would be foolproof. It is, after all, a shape and an instrument at the same time. But when the big moment came, I got distracted by a moth in the auditorium lights. Everyone played in harmony while I clanged at random intervals like a confused church bell. My grandmother clapped the loudest, bless her, but even she admitted afterward, "Well, Henry, you certainly had enthusiasm." So yes, showcase has always meant trouble. The next week at class, Raul greeted us with his usual flair. "Amigos!" "Tonight we begin choreography for the showcase." I wanted to protest, loudly. Perhaps stage a sit-in near the water fountain, but Linda was already bouncing with excitement, Cheryl was already shimmying in place, and Raul was already demonstrating what looked like a move that could dislocate 3 vertebrae. "Step, step, turn, dip," he shouted, snapping his fingers. Again, step, step, turn, dip. Reader, when I attempted it, the result was more like stumble, shuffle, near collapse, apologize. Raul swooped past me. "Senor Henry, the dip is not a collapse into despair. It is romance. It is passion." "Romance is hard on my lower back," I muttered. Linda giggled, which encouraged Raul. "Your partner must feel like a rose in your arms, not a bag of groceries." I nodded solemnly. "Groceries I can handle. Roses, questionable." But Raul was relentless. Over and over he made us practice the dip. Each time I prayed silently that Linda's trust in me would not be rewarded with a sudden trip to the chiropractor. Cheryl, meanwhile, was thriving. She twirled, she spun, she even threw in flourishes that weren't in the routine. Raul practically glowed. "Yes, fire! This is how salsa conquers hearts." I considered pointing out that salsa was currently conquering my arches, but I kept quiet. By the end of class, my shirt could have been wrung out over a houseplant, and Raul announced, "Next week, amigos, we rehearse with music." Be ready to perform for each other. Perform for each other? I nearly fainted. It was one thing to shuffle anonymously in the back row. It was another to be watched. On the drive home, Cheryl was already brainstorming costume ideas. "We need matching outfits. Maybe red for passion, or sequins. Sequins always pop under the lights." "Sequins?" I croaked. "Cheryl, I'm barely surviving in cotton." Linda, traitor that she was, grinned. Sequins could be fun, I groaned. This is how Elvis started. Cheryl ignored me. I'll check thrift stores this week. We'll find something fabulous. I sank deeper into the seat, defeated. Daisy would never forgive me if I came home covered in sequins. The following days were unusual. Linda began practicing in the living room, humming salsa music under her breath, twirling past the coffee table. Daisy chased her tail in solidarity, adding her own flair. Come on, Henry, Linda urged. Practice with me. Linda, the recliner does not move to salsa tempo. Just once, she coaxed. Step, step, turn. So I tried, and once again, I proved myself the human embodiment of a tangled extension cord. But here's the surprising thing. After a few tries, I didn't topple. I didn't dip her into oblivion. I actually managed, once, maybe twice, to stay on beat. Linda's eyes lit up. See? You can do it, and I didn't hate it, not entirely. Of course, the neighbors noticed, because neighbors always notice. One evening, as Linda and I practiced in the backyard, where the grass was slightly less treacherous than the living room rug, Mr. Hawthorne from next door leaned over the fence. Practicing for the showcase, Henry? He asked with a smirk. He wore his usual Hawaiian shirt, clearly jealous that mine had already seen battle. How do you know about that? I asked suspiciously. It's on the community bulletin, he said cheerfully. Front page. Big headline, Local couples prepare for salsa spectacular. I nearly swallowed my tongue. Front page? Don't worry, he added. We'll all be there cheering you on. By we, he meant the entire neighborhood, the mailman, probably the UPS guy, and possibly the lady who jogs by every morning with a stroller and a suspiciously fast dachshund. My knees gave out. Linda, I whispered, it's public. Public. Linda just smiled sweetly. All the more reason to practice. The next week at class, things escalated. Raoul divided us into pairs to perform the routine for each other. Couples lined up, applause at the ready. When our turn came, my heart pounded like a drum solo. Step, step, turn, dip, Raoul called. We did it, somehow. My feet didn't betray me. Linda didn't crash into the bleachers, and the dip ended with her still upright. The class clapped politely. Raoul clapped too. Better. But senor, more hips, less panic. I nodded gravely. I'll see what I can do about the panic. After class, Cheryl pulled us aside. We need a signature move, something that'll make you two stand out, I balked. Cheryl, standing out is the last thing I need. Nonsense, she said. You'll wow the audience. Trust me. And when Cheryl says trust me, it's usually followed by chaos. That night back home, Linda turned to me while brushing her hair. You know, I think Cheryl might be right. A signature move could be fun. Linda, the only signature move I have is tripping on air. She laughed, kissed me goodnight, and said, then we'll call it the Henry Shuffle. And just like that, my fate was sealed. But here's the funny thing. As much as I dreaded the showcase, as much as I hated the sequins Cheryl was probably hoarding in her trunk, I also couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Because when Linda's eyes sparkled, when she laughed mid-dip, when she believed in me despite my two left feet, well, maybe salsa wasn't so bad after all. Of course, I was still in denial. And the denial would not last long. Because the showcase was approaching fast, and with it, more chaos than even Daisy could wag her tail at. By the third week of salsa class, Cheryl showed up at our house with what she called the big reveal. I was cautiously optimistic. Maybe she'd baked cookies, maybe she'd brought a board game, maybe, just maybe, she'd finally realized salsa was a cruel trick invented by people with sturdy hips. But no. She came in holding 2 garment bags that sparkled suspiciously even through the plastic. Ta-da! She cried, setting them on the couch like sacred relics. Costumes for the showcase! I groaned so loudly Daisy barked, thinking perhaps burglars had arrived disguised as fashion designers. Linda gasped in delight. Cheryl, these are gorgeous, I muttered. Define gorgeous. She unzipped the first bag, revealing a dress so red it could be spotted from space, covered in sequins that twinkled like 1,000 judgmental stars. The second bag contained a shirt that matched, bright red, sequins everywhere, plus a collar so wide it might double as a sail in light wind. I stared at it, horrified. Cheryl, if I wear that, planes will divert from their flight paths. Exactly, she said. You'll shine. Shine? Cheryl, I'll blind people. Somewhere right now, a lighthouse keeper is getting nervous. Linda, traitor that she is, was already holding the dress against herself and twirling in front of the mirror. Daisy wagged her tail approvingly. Henry, Linda said sweetly, we're wearing them. No, 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 I protested, waving my arms. You'll look stunning. I'll look like a malfunctioning disco ball. But of course, I was outnumbered. Cheryl, Linda, and Daisy formed a majority coalition, and I, the lone dissenting vote, was once again doomed. This wasn't my first betrayal at the hands of Sequins. Back in high school, I once attended a costume party where my friend Dave convinced me to wear a sequined vest. It'll make you stand out, he said. It did. Unfortunately, it also made me stand out to the janitor, who mistook me for a mirror ball and directed a spotlight onto me during the school band's rendition of Proud Mary. I have never forgiven Dave. So, Sequins and I, we don't get along. Later that night, I tried the shirt on. Friends, the sound it made when I moved, like 1,000 tiny bells jingling in protest, was enough to make Daisy cock her head and growl. I looked in the mirror and winced. Linda, I said gravely. I look like Liberace's understudy, she giggled. You look festive. I look like a float in the Rose Parade. Festive, I sighed, resigned. Fine. But if people start making wishes by tossing coins at me, you're responsible. The next evening, we practiced the routine in costume. Cheryl insisted we get used to the feel of the fabric. The sequins scratched. They scratched my neck, my arms, and possibly my soul. But I managed to step, turn, dip without tripping over the hem of Linda's dress. Daisy, however, thought we had lost our minds. She barked, tried to herd us into the corner, then grabbed the fringe of Linda's dress and pulled like it was a tug-of-war toy. Daisy, Linda scolded, laughing as she tugged the fabric back. Daisy barked twice, clearly saying, if you two insist on dancing like lunatics, at least let me join. Of course, word of the sequins spread. The very next morning, while I was dragging the trash bin to the curb, Mr. Hawthorne, the Hawaiian shirt neighbor, leaned over the fence with his coffee mug. So, Henry, he said slyly, heard you've got a costume now. I froze. How do you know that? Cheryl posted a sneak peek in the community Facebook group. I nearly dropped the trash bin. What? Oh, don't worry, he said, sipping smugly. Everyone's very excited. There's even a betting pool on how many times you'll trip during the showcase. A betting pool? He nodded. Current odds say 3 trips minimum. I put money on 5. I marched back inside, fuming. Linda, we're the neighborhood entertainment, she shrugged. At least they'll all come to cheer. Cheer, I groaned. They're coming for blood. By the next class, Raoul was cranking up the intensity. Amigos, he boomed. Tonight we add flair. Flair, it turned out, meant spins, faster spins. When Linda twirled, she looked graceful, like a leaf caught in a gentle breeze. When I tried, I resembled a malfunctioning office chair. At one point, I spun halfway, lost track of left versus right, and bumped into Cheryl. She laughed. You're getting there. Getting where? I asked. The ER? Raoul swooped past. Senor Henry, you must let the music carry you. I'm trying, but the music keeps dropping me. The class chuckled, which only encouraged him. Feel it here. He pounded his chest. Not here. He tapped his forehead. I sighed. What if both of those locations are currently filing noise complaints? By the end of class, Raoul was satisfied enough to declare, yes, you are ready for the showcase. I nearly fainted. Ready? I was as ready as a soggy sponge for a fire drill. But Linda was glowing, Cheryl was buzzing, and Daisy, when we got home, practically demanded her own pair of sequined booties. You'd think I'd be used to public performances by now. But no. The last time I'd been roped into one was years ago at a PTA fundraiser. The principal begged parents to perform a short skit to boost community spirit. I reluctantly agreed. My role? A tree. I was supposed to stand still, arms out, while kids sang around me. Simple, right? Except the costume was itchy, the kids were off-key, and midway through, my nose itched so badly I tried to scratch it with my branch. The result? I poked myself in the eye and toppled forward, crushing little Timmy's papier-mâché squirrel. So yes, showcases and I have a rocky past. Back in the present, as the showcase approached, our lives transformed into rehearsals. Linda insisted on running through the routine after dinner. Cheryl sent us motivational texts with too many exclamation points. Raoul emailed detailed notes, including one that read, "Senor Henry, remember, panic is not a dance move." And Daisy? Daisy kept trying to join. She'd bark when we dipped, leap between us during spins, and once, memorably, stole my sequin shirt and dragged it into the backyard. "Daisy!" I shouted, chasing her. She pranced across the lawn, sequins glittering in her teeth like pirate treasure. Mr. Hawthorne, naturally, witnessed the whole thing. "Looks good on her," he called. "Might improve your odds in the betting pool." I considered moving to another town. Finally, showcase night loomed on the calendar. The program was printed. The neighbors were buzzing. Cheryl had ironed the costumes, bless her sequined soul. And me? I was standing in front of the mirror, staring at my glittering shirt, whispering pep talks to myself like a man about to walk into battle. "Okay, Henry, you can do this. Step, step, turn, dip. Don't trip. Don't blind the audience. Don't collapse into despair. Just survive." Linda appeared behind me, radiant in her red dress. She smiled and touched my shoulder. "You'll be wonderful," she said softly. And for just a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. But then Cheryl burst into the room shouting, "Come on, it's time! Let's go wow them!" And I remembered. I was about to salsa in front of half the community, possibly the mailman, definitely Mr. Hawthorne, and quite possibly Daisy if she managed to escape. Reader, this was no longer just a dance, this was destiny. Two words that made my palms sweat more than mowing the lawn in July and paying taxes combined. The community center gym had been transformed. Rows of folding chairs lined the floor, filled with neighbors, relatives, and people I was pretty sure had only shown up because they smelled free snacks. Strings of lights twinkled overhead. A stage had been assembled at one end with shiny curtains that made me think of a low-budget Vegas revue. And then there was Raoul, dressed in gold this time, gold. He strutted across the stage, mustache waxed to perfection, voice booming. "Bienvenidos, amigos. Tonight you will witness passion, rhythm, love expressed through movement." The crowd clapped and cheered. Meanwhile, I was hiding backstage in a cloud of sequins, whispering to myself, "It's just 3 minutes. You can do anything for 3 minutes, even hold a plank. Even listen to Cheryl explain essential oils." Linda squeezed my hand. "You'll be wonderful." I shook my head. "I'll be visible, which is different." Cheryl, of course, was pacing like a prize fighter before a title match. "We've got this. Just smile, keep the energy up, and if something goes wrong, make it look intentional. Something would go wrong. That much I could guarantee." Peeking through the curtain, I spotted them. Mr. Hawthorne, grinning like a shark, wearing his loudest Hawaiian shirt. His wife beside him with a notepad, probably keeping track of my trip count. The mailman, off duty but still wearing his uniform, holding a soda. Why was the mailman here? Did I accidentally deliver myself onto his route as entertainment? Even the barista from my coffee shop. She waved enthusiastically when she spotted me. I waved back weakly, regretting every extra shot of espresso I'd ordered from her in the past month. And then, oh no, oh, absolutely not. Daisy, yes, Cheryl had brought her. There she was in the front row, wearing a sparkly red bow around her collar, panting happily, tail thumping against the folding chair. I hissed at Cheryl, "You brought the dog." "She wanted to come," Cheryl whispered back. "She doesn't have thumbs." "She's family." Linda, unhelpful, leaned down and kissed Daisy's head. "Our biggest fan," I groaned. If Daisy barked during the performance, I'd never live it down. The showcase began with other couples. A young pair did a surprisingly sharp cha-cha. An older couple performed a tango so dramatic, I was worried they might file for divorce mid-routine. A trio of teenagers did something called hip-hop salsa fusion, which I'm pretty sure violated physics. The crowd cheered wildly for everyone. "See?" Linda whispered. "They're supportive." "Or drunk on concession stand churros," I muttered. Finally, Raoul boomed. "And now, our next couple, Henry and Linda." The applause began, the spotlight hit, and I realized there was no turning back. The music started, a fast, spicy rhythm that made my heart skip half its beats. Step, step, turn. Linda looked radiant. She smiled at me, then at the crowd, twirling with grace. Step, step, dip. Somehow I caught her. We didn't fall. The audience clapped. For the first 30 seconds, things actually worked. My feet mostly obeyed. My sequins only squeaked occasionally. Linda's confidence carried us both. I dared to think, maybe this won't be a disaster. Which, of course, is when disaster struck. On the second spin, my left shoe betrayed me. The sole squeaked against the polished floor with a noise so shrill it could have summoned dolphins. The slip sent me stumbling half a beat behind. Linda's eyes widened. Cheryl gasped. Daisy barked encouragement, or maybe panic. I recovered, sort of, by flailing my arm in what looked suspiciously like jazz hands. The crowd cheered louder. They thought it was intentional. "Keep going," Linda hissed, still smiling like a pro. "Step, step, turn." I over-rotated. Instead of a graceful spin, I turned a full circle and ended up facing the wrong way. The audience roared with laughter. "Smile?" Linda whispered through her teeth. I smiled, though it felt more like baring my teeth at a dentist. Then came the dip. The one we'd practiced over and over. I lowered Linda carefully. She leaned back beautifully. The crowd oohed, and then Daisy barked so loudly I lost focus. My grip slipped. Linda slid half an inch farther than planned, nearly to the floor. The audience gasped. With a heroic grunt, I yanked her back up, nearly throwing my back out but managing to avoid catastrophe. The audience exploded into cheers and applause. "You, Yara." Chum, we weren't done. Raoul had insisted on a signature move. Ours was supposed to be a simple spin-twirl-dip combo, but in the heat of the moment, adrenaline took over. I spun Linda once, twice, accidentally thrice. By the fourth spin, she was giggling uncontrollably. I panicked, raised both arms in surrender, and ended the routine by pointing at Daisy, who barked on cue. The audience roared, standing ovation. Linda curtsied. I bowed. Daisy wagged. And just like that, it was over. We stumbled backstage, gasping for air. Cheryl was bouncing. "That was amazing! You killed it!" "Killed what?" I panted. "My arches." No. The audience loved you. That slip, the overspin, the jazz hands, it was comedy genius. "Comedy?" I croaked. "Cheryl, this was supposed to be romance." Linda hugged me, laughing. "Henry, it was romance." "In our style," I blinked at her. "Our style," she nodded. "Chaotic, funny, unpredictable, perfect, and reader." She wasn't wrong. After the show, the neighbors swarmed us. "Bravo!" cried Mr. Hawthorne, clapping me on the back so hard I nearly fell over. 5 trips predicted, 0 delivered. You cost me $20. The barista grinned. "Henry, I've never seen you move so fast without coffee." The mailman gave me a thumbs up. "Best delivery I've seen all week." Even Raoul, glittering like a golden sun god, declared, "Signor Henry, you have potential." Potential? That's like telling a toddler with finger paint he's ready for the Louvre. But hey, I'd take it. And Daisy? Daisy licked my face, sequins and all, which I decided was the highest praise of the evening. Later that night, back at home, I collapsed into my recliner. Linda curled up beside me, still glowing from the performance. Daisy sprawled at our feet, snoring after her big night out. I sighed. "Well, I survived," Linda smiled. "You did more than survive. You danced," I chuckled. "Barely." "But you did it with me," she said softly. And she was right. For all the flailing, squeaking, and near collapses, we'd done it together. And in the end, that's what mattered, though I still had sequin burns. This reminded me of the one time I played baseball in Little League. I struck out every at-bat that season, every single one, except the very last game, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Somehow, miraculously, I connected. A blooper single. 2 runs scored. We lost the game anyway, but the crowd cheered like I'd just won the World Series. That night, my mom made me spaghetti and said, "Sometimes the crowd just loves an underdog," and that's what the showcase felt like. I wasn't the best dancer. I wasn't even in the top 20, but I was the underdog, and the crowd loved it. So yes, the showcase was chaos. Sequins flew, dogs barked, neighbors laughed, and Raul probably lost 10 years off his life watching me almost collapse during the dip. But in the end, we had fun. Real fun. And that, my friend, is something I never expected when Cheryl walked into our house that fateful afternoon. Of course, I thought the chaos was over, but I should have known better, because Cheryl had plans, big ones. I should have known the showcase wasn't the end. You see, in my mind, that performance was a grand finale. A one-night-only spectacular, never to be repeated, the kind of event that people chuckle about at block parties, but eventually forget. But Cheryl? Oh no. To Cheryl, the showcase was just the beginning. We'd barely made it through the following Tuesday when she showed up at our door again, eyes sparkling like a woman with a secret and a coupon code. "Guess what?" she cried, bursting into the living room without knocking. Daisy barked twice, startled out of a nap. Linda smiled politely. I groaned and pulled the blanket higher over my recliner. "No, Cheryl," I said flatly. "Whatever it is, the answer is no." She gasped dramatically, clutching her chest. "You haven't even heard the news." "I don't need to. If it involves sequins, shoes, or moving my hips in public, it's a firm no." Linda tilted her head. "What is it, Cheryl?" Cheryl grinned. "I signed us up for the regional salsa festival." Silence. Then I laughed nervously. "Ha! Good when Cheryl's smile didn't fade." Linda's jaw dropped. "Wait, you what?" "The regional salsa festival," Cheryl said, bouncing like a child on Christmas morning. "It's in 3 weeks. Couples from all over the county perform. It's huge." I sat bolt upright. "You signed us up?" "Us? As in me?" "Yes," Cheryl said cheerfully. "After your showcase, I knew you two had what it takes." "Cheryl, at the showcase I nearly dropped Linda because Daisy barked. And the crowd loved it," she shot back. "They adored you. You're naturals." "Cheryl," I said slowly, "I'm as natural at salsa as a hippo on roller skates." But Linda's eyes... Oh no, Linda's eyes were already sparkling. "A festival?" she said softly. "That actually sounds fun." "Fun," I cried. "Linda, do you remember what happened last time?" I squeaked. I slipped. I spun like a confused lawn sprinkler. "And you made everyone laugh," she said, squeezing my hand. "Henry, we could do this." Cheryl clapped. "Yes, that's the spirit." I groaned. Daisy wagged her tail like she was in on the conspiracy. This wasn't the first time I'd been tricked into competing. Years ago, Linda convinced me to sign up for a local fun run. "It's just for charity," she said. "No pressure." What she failed to mention was that, Fun run, in this case, meant 5K with competitive runners who had trained for months. I arrived in jeans and sneakers from 1998. The man beside me stretched like a professional gazelle. The woman in front of me had an actual hydration belt and aerodynamic sunglasses. Reader, I finished dead last. A child on rollerblades passed me, twice. So yes, competitions and I have history. Back to the present, Cheryl pulled out a flyer and spread it on the coffee table. Bright colors, pictures of glamorous couples, words like celebration of Latin rhythm, and don't miss the county's hottest dance event. There was even a category for amateur couples. That's us? Cheryl beamed. I shook my head. No, that's people with actual talent. We're in the accidental comedy duo category. Linda studied the flyer. It says there's a group performance too. Couldn't we just do that? Cheryl waved her off. Oh no, you two are stars. You're signed up for the couples slot. With practice, you'll wow them practice. My ankles whimpered. From that moment, Cheryl declared herself our coach. She arrived every evening with a portable speaker, blasting salsa music at top volume. She made us rehearse in the living room, the backyard, even once in the driveway, where the mailman stopped mid-route to watch. "Henry!" Cheryl barked like a drill sergeant. "Hips!" "Where are the hips?" "Right here," I grumbled, "unfortunately attached to me." "Step with confidence," she cried. "I'd rather step with orthopedic support." Linda, meanwhile, was thriving. She twirled, dipped, spun. She even started adding flourishes of her own. She looked radiant, glowing, unstoppable. And me? I sweated so much Daisy brought me her water bowl in sympathy. Naturally, the neighbors caught on. They always do. One evening, while practicing in the backyard, I turned mid-spin and spotted half the block watching from their porches. Mr. Hawthorne clapped sarcastically. "Looking good, Henry. Watch that left foot." Mrs. Delgado shouted, "Mas patient." Even the teenager down the street yelled, "Do the worm," which I ignored for the sake of my spine. The next day, someone had taped a sign to our mailbox, "Go Henry and Linda, Salsa Champs 2025. I nearly tore it down, but Linda beamed so brightly I let it stay. Daisy, of course, wanted in. She barked every time we rehearsed. She tried to wedge herself between us during dips. She even attempted to spin once, tangling herself in the living room rug. "Cheryl," I said one night, panting, "why don't we just enter Daisy in the festival?" "She's got better rhythm than me," Cheryl gasped. "That's brilliant." Linda shook her head. "Henry, the festival isn't for dogs." But Daisy stared at me with such betrayal in her eyes, I half expected her to pack a suitcase. This reminded me of the neighborhood barbecue talent show years ago. I was supposed to juggle 3 apples. Easy, right? Except halfway through, Daisy, still a puppy back then, charged onto the stage, grabbed 1 apple, and sprinted into the crowd. I tried to keep going with 2 apples, panicked, tossed them too high, and 1 landed in the potato salad. The crowd cheered. Not for me, for Daisy. The next year, they put her name on the flyer instead of mine. So yes, I knew exactly how this festival was going to end. By week 2 of training, Cheryl had added props, scarves, hats, at one point, maracas. "Cheryl," I groaned, shaking the maracas limply. "This is cultural appropriation of percussion instruments." "It's flair," she insisted. "It's arthritis waiting to happen," I countered. Linda laughed so hard she had to sit down. And Daisy. She stole a scarf and paraded through the yard like a flamenco diva. The neighbors applauded. Finally, one evening after practice, I collapsed into the recliner and declared, That's it. I can't do it. I'm withdrawing from the festival, Linda gasped. Cheryl froze mid-shimmy. What? Linda asked softly. I can't, I said, covering my face. I'll make a fool of myself. I'll embarrass you. Everyone will laugh. The room went quiet. Even Daisy stopped wagging. Then Linda sat beside me. She took my hand. Henry, she said gently, I don't care if you step wrong. I don't care if you fall. I don't even care if Daisy upstages us. I just want to dance with you. That's all, reader. My heart melted. Even if I squeak, I whispered. Even if you squeak, she said firmly. Cheryl sniffled dramatically. You two are disgustingly sweet. And just like that, I was back in. The next morning, a new flyer appeared on our mailbox. Vote Henry and Linda crowd favorites. Apparently, Cheryl had started a promotional campaign. Posters, Facebook posts, even a rumor about us being the funniest salsa couple in the county. Cheryl, I moaned, I'm not running for mayor. But it was too late. The community had spoken. We were in the festival, and I had 3 days to prepare. The festival was enormous. I'd pictured maybe 30 people in a church basement, a raffle for a fruit basket, and a plate of brownies at the concession table. Instead, we pulled up to the county fairgrounds and were greeted by banners, balloons, food trucks, and a stage so big it looked like it had been borrowed from a rock concert. There were even bleachers. Bleachers. Linda, I whispered as we shuffled through the crowd. There are hundreds of people here. She squeezed my hand. It'll be fine. Fine? I croaked. I thought we were doing this in front of 12 people and a crock pot of chili. Cheryl, of course, was glowing like a proud stage mom. Isn't this amazing? All this energy, the music, the food, the excitement. I looked around. People were salsaing in the walkways. Children were shaking toy maracas. Someone's grandmother was selling churros the size of baseball bats. The smell of fried dough mingled with the faint tang of hairspray and adrenaline. This is not amazing, I muttered. This is a trap. Backstage, the chaos was even worse. Couples were stretching, rehearsing last-minute spins, applying extra layers of glitter to their foreheads. One man wore pants so tight I was genuinely worried about his circulation. Another woman had a dress that looked like a rainbow collided with a disco ball. And then there was us. Linda looked radiant in her red sequin dress. I looked like an emergency exit sign had come to life. Even Daisy looked better than me. Yes, Cheryl had smuggled her in again. She was wearing a tiny sequined vest and wagging her tail like she owned the place. You can't bring a dog backstage, I hissed. She's our mascot, Cheryl insisted. Every star needs one. The stage manager, a man with a clipboard, a headset, and an expression of eternal despair, spotted Daisy. He opened his mouth to object, then apparently decided he didn't have the energy to fight Cheryl. Daisy was in. As we waited for our turn, the crowd roared for the acts before us. Couples spun, dipped, leapt like gazelles. At one point, a man flipped his partner into the air and caught her without breaking a sweat. I nearly fainted. Linda, I whispered, what if you expect me to flip you? She laughed. Henry, if you tried to flip me, we'd both end up in traction. Finally, our names were called. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer boomed, please welcome Henry and Linda. The spotlight hit. The crowd clapped. My stomach dropped into my sequins. We stepped onto the stage. Linda smiled brilliantly. I smiled too, though it looked more like a man who just accidentally sat on a thumbtack. The music started. Step, step, turn. So far, so good. Linda twirled, radiant. I did not fall. The crowd clapped along. Step, step, dip. She leaned back gracefully. I held her steady. My knees trembled like a folding chair at a county fair, but we survived. Then Daisy barked. The crowd roared with laughter. Someone shouted, "Let the dog dance!" And that was it. Daisy bounded onto the stage, sequins flashing under the lights. She pranced between us, tail wagging furiously, spinning in circles like she'd been training for this her whole life. The audience lost their minds. "Linda," I hissed, "she's stealing the show." Linda just laughed and twirled again. "Go with it." So I did. I scooped Daisy up mid-step, held her like a partner, and spun clumsily in a circle. The crowd howled with delight. Phones came out. Somewhere in the distance, I swear, I heard the sound of a tick-tock being born. Linda twirled beside me. Daisy licked my face. And somehow the three of us ended our routine in a perfect final pose. Linda dipping gracefully, me holding Daisy like a furry trophy, all of us glittering in the spotlight. The crowd leapt to their feet. Applause thundered. Someone tossed a churro onto the stage in tribute. We bowed. Daisy barked, and for one brief shining moment, I forgot how ridiculous I looked. Backstage, Cheryl was sobbing with joy. "That was incredible. You brought the house down." "I brought the dog out," I corrected, "and she carried us." Linda hugged me, still glowing. "Henry, we did it. We actually did it." And I realized she was right. We had. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but joyfully, together. Of course, things weren't over, because festivals have awards, and Cheryl, God help me, thought we had a chance. After our routine, I thought the ordeal was over. I was ready to slink off the stage, eat a consolation churro, and never wear sequins again. But no. Festivals, it turned out, had award ceremonies. We were herded back on stage with the other couples, all of us glittering under the lights like a pack of overly festive disco balls. Raoul strutted forward, mustache gleaming, microphone in hand. "Amigos," he boomed. "What a night! What passion! What rhythm! And now, the awards." The crowd cheered. I clutched Linda's hand, whispering, "Don't get your hopes up. We're walking away with nothing but dog hair and shame." Cheryl, bouncing beside us, hissed, "No, no, I can feel it. We're winners." Raoul began with the serious categories. Best technique went to the couple who flipped each other like pancakes. Best costumes went to the rainbow disco ball lady. Most passionate went to a pair who kissed mid-dip so dramatically I thought they might need oxygen tanks afterward. Then Raoul grinned. And finally, a very special award. "Crowd favorite," the audience roared. He drew out the suspense, pacing the stage like a man about to crown Miss Universe. And the crowd favorite? The audience screamed a name, a single name, over and over. "Daisy! Daisy! Daisy!" I froze. No, 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 no. Raoul laughed so hard his mustache wiggled. "See, the crowd has spoken. The crowd favorite award goes to Henry, Linda, and Daisy." The spotlight swung to us. Daisy barked triumphantly, wagging her tail like she knew she had just dethroned us both. The stage manager scurried over with a trophy shaped like a golden shoe. Daisy licked it proudly. The audience was on their feet, chanting her name. People whistled, clapped, waved their churros in salute. Linda doubled over with laughter. Cheryl clapped so hard she nearly fainted. And me. I held Daisy high like Simba in The Lion King while the crowd lost its collective mind. Backstage afterward, Cheryl squealed, "Do you realize what this means?" "You're famous," I groaned. "Correction, Daisy's famous." "I'm just her chauffeur." Linda wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. "Henry, we'll never live this down." And she was right. By the time we got home, videos were already circulating online. Daisy twirling, Daisy barking on cue, Daisy stealing the spotlight. The captions were brutal. That guy in sequins was okay, but the dog? A star. The next morning, our mailbox was plastered with notes, neighbors congratulating Daisy, flyers suggesting we enter her in pet talent shows. One anonymous envelope even contained a tiny pair of sequined booties. At the coffee shop, the barista grinned. "Your dog's a legend, Henry. Can I get her autograph?" The mailman saluted Daisy when he dropped off the letters. Mr. Hawthorne leaned over the fence and said, "I bet $20 on you, Henry." Should have bet on the dog. Linda couldn't stop laughing. Cheryl was already talking about the next big stage. And Daisy. Daisy strutted around the house like she owned the deed. I sat in my recliner, head in my hands, muttering, outdanced, outshone, outfamed by my own dog. But then Linda curled up beside me, kissed my cheek and whispered, "You were wonderful. Sequins, squeaks, and all." And in that moment, it didn't matter that Daisy was the real star, because Linda was smiling at me like I'd just danced her around the moon. Of course, I thought things would calm down after that. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when Cheryl gets an idea, peace and quiet are the first casualties. And the next idea she had? Well, let's just say it was bigger, louder, and involved more glitter than even Daisy was prepared for. Just when I thought life might return to normal, Cheryl showed up again with what she called an opportunity. Now, I've learned that when Cheryl uses that word, it usually means trouble disguised in glitter. She marched into the living room with a brochure the size of a phone book. Daisy barked once, either as a warning or as applause. "Regional fame is just the beginning," Cheryl declared, waving the brochure. "Now it's time for the State Fair Talent Competition." I groaned so loudly the recliner groaned with me. "Cheryl, no!" "Absolutely not. Do you know how big the State Fair is? That's like thousands of people and livestock." Linda raised her eyebrows. "The State Fair?" "Yes," Cheryl beamed. "It's perfect. You, Linda, Henry, and of course Daisy. They'll eat it up." "I'll be the one eaten up," I muttered. "By anxiety? Or possibly a rogue funnel cake." Cheryl ignored me. She opened the brochure to a page filled with smiling faces and trophies. "See? Amateur couples, pet acts, novelty routines, it's all here. You'd be a shoo-in, Daisy," traitor that she is, wagged her tail and barked again like she was already packing her suitcase. I pointed at her. "No, don't encourage this." Linda smiled sweetly. "It could be fun, Henry." "Fun?" I sputtered. "That's what you said about salsa class, and now I'm a meme." And it was true. By then, the video of our festival routine had gone viral. Someone set it to dramatic opera music. Another added cartoon subtitles of Daisy shouting, "Follow my lead, peasants." A third version had already been turned into a ringtone. At the coffee shop, strangers whispered, "That's him, the guy from the dog dance video." At the grocery store, a cashier grinned at me and said, "Step, step, squeak," while scanning my milk. Even the mailman asked if Daisy had an agent yet. So, no, the last thing I wanted was the state fair. But of course, Linda's eyes sparkled. "Henry, think about it. We could make it a trip. Stay overnight, eat fair food, ride the Ferris wheel, and then dance in front of strangers holding turkey legs the size of baseball bats," I said. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "With me." Reader, I melted again. My resistance was weaker than my arches after 2 salsa turns. So that's how I found myself practicing once more, this time with Daisy officially added to the routine. Cheryl insisted she'd be the finale. I was skeptical. She can't even count to 8, but Cheryl was determined. She devised an ending pose where I'd dip Linda while holding Daisy aloft like a glittering trophy. "Cheryl," I said seriously, "one wrong move and I'll end up in traction while Daisy gets a book deal." The practices got louder, sillier, and more chaotic. Daisy twirled on command. Well, most of the time. Sometimes she twirled when no one asked, usually mid-dip, which ended with me nearly colliding with the coffee table. The neighbors naturally took notice. Again, one evening as we rehearsed in the backyard, Mr. Hawthorne leaned over the fence munching popcorn. "State Fair, huh? Heard you're going for gold." "How do you already know?" I demanded. "Cheryl posted it in the neighborhood group," he said. "We're organizing a carpool to come watch." I nearly fainted. "A carpool?" "Yep," he said. "We'll all be there." Front row by we. He meant every single neighbor within a 10-mile radius, possibly the entire postal service. As the date approached, Linda grew more excited. Cheryl got bossier. Daisy got more famous. And me? I grew more terrified. The night before we left, I sat in my recliner, staring at my sequin shirt like it was a death sentence. "Linda," I whispered, "what if I mess up? What if Daisy runs off? What if I sneeze mid-spin and knock over the judge's lemonade?" She kissed my cheek. "Then we'll laugh and it'll still be wonderful, because we're doing it together." And there it was again, that smile, that sparkle, that faith in me I never quite understood, but always loved. I sighed. "All right, let's go embarrass ourselves at the state fair," Daisy barked, loud, triumphant. "Ready?" I should have known she was the only one truly prepared for what was about to happen. The state fair was bigger than I'd ever imagined. We pulled into the parking lot, and it was like stepping into another universe. Giant rides spinning, music blasting, the smell of fried everything hanging heavy in the air. Funnel cakes, corn dogs, roasted peanuts, and something suspiciously called deep-fried pickled cheesecake. I took one sniff and whispered to Linda, "This is how civilizations collapse." She just laughed, arm looped through mine, while Cheryl marched ahead with the energy of a woman leading a parade. Daisy trotted proudly at her side, sequined vest glittering, already attracting admiring glances. People pointed, children squealed, strangers took pictures. "She's not even on stage yet," I muttered. Backstage was pure chaos. Acts lined up like contestants in a talent circus. A teenager juggling flaming batons. A barbershop quartet warming up so loudly I thought the roof might cave in. A magician arguing with a goat that refused to wear its hat. And then there was us. One nervous man in a squeaky sequined shirt, his graceful wife in red, and a dog who thought she owned the place. When our slot was called, my stomach dropped into my shoes. The stage was enormous, the crowd stretched as far as I could see, and the air was alive with cheering, clapping, and the smell of buttered popcorn. "Smile," Linda whispered, squeezing my hand. "Don't faint," I whispered back. The music started. Step, step, turn. We were off. Linda twirled gracefully, radiant as always. I managed not to trip over my own feet, which already felt like a victory. The crowd clapped along, the beat thumping through my chest. Dip. I caught her, steady. Cheers erupted. Then Daisy joined in. On cue, miraculously, she pranced out from the wings, spun in a perfect circle, and barked in rhythm. The crowd exploded. Phones shot up, flashes popped, and I knew we were doomed. "Henry," Linda whispered, still smiling. "She's stealing the show again." I muttered through clenched teeth. "She's welcome to it." We danced on, the three of us now a team. Linda twirling like a dream, Daisy wagging and spinning like a furry metronome, and me stumbling just enough to keep the audience laughing. The grand finale came. I dipped Linda low, scooped Daisy up with my other arm, and held them both high under the lights. The crowd went wild, roaring, stomping, clapping, cheering. A man in the front row waved a turkey leg like a flag of victory. Somewhere in the back, I swear I saw the magician's goat nod in approval. We bowed. Daisy barked. The audience chanted her name again. Backstage, Cheryl was hysterical with joy. "You did it! You brought the house down again." "I think Daisy brought the house down," I corrected, wiping sweat from my forehead. Linda kissed me softly. "Henry, you were wonderful." And for once, I almost believed it. The awards came later. We didn't win Best Dance Technique or Best Costume or even Most Creative. But when they announced the People's Choice Award, the entire crowd screamed Daisy's name. The trophy was presented to her. She licked it. The audience cheered like she'd just solved world peace. We loaded back into the car that night, exhausted, sticky with fair food, glittering from head to toe. Daisy sat proudly in the back seat with her trophy, tail wagging like she knew she was the real star. I sighed, leaning back. "Well, Linda, we did it. We salsa'd our way through disaster." She rested her head on my shoulder. "And we did it together." Cheryl turned from the front seat, grinning. "And next year—" "No," I said firmly. "Next year I'm eating funnel cake in peace." Daisy barked once as if to say, "We'll see about that." And that, dear listener, was the afternoon I met my wife's best friend, got dragged into salsa dancing, and somehow ended up sharing the stage with a dog in Sequins. If you're still here, thank you for twirling through this chaos with me. And hey, if you enjoyed this cozy tale, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next misadventure, because around here, there's always another one waiting in the wings. Good night, my friend.